been following my videos, you will have seen this bandsaw, the Scheppach HBS20, shed a tyre on the top wheel, and in doing so the blade leapt forward a good distance, which was a little bit concerning at the time. Although I have to confess, at the time I didn't fully understand why it had done that. It was only the next time I came to use it and there was a horrendous rattle come from it, because the blade wasn't on the top wheel. The tyre that goes around the metal blade had come off. Now at the time I had no choice but to try and super glue the tyre onto the wheel, but I realised this wasn't a permanent solution, so I have gone out and bought a couple of new tyres. I got these from NMA Tools, which is the UK supplier of Scheppach. They are rubber. And they are the same spec, I believe, as the original tyres, which had perished. More of this in a minute. But having bought these, the day that these arrived, somebody commented on one of my other videos that they had replaced the tyres on theirs with urethane tyres, which, great suggestion. Unfortunately, I'd already bought these. Their urethane tyres were done as an upgrade, and I guess I should have done this on this really, but I'd already paid I think £6 each for these, plus VAT, plus delivery. I think the two tyres came to £20, which is a good proportion of the cost of this in the first place, but hey. I don't know how much the urethane tyres were, but I would have considered it as an option. These are rubber. They may perish again. I'm at a loss to know why a 2-year-old bandsaw had perished tyres. It could have been that I cut some green wood on this. I cut some bay tree wood, and maybe the sap of the wood interacted with the rubber in some way and caused the rubber to perish. The bottom wheel went first. The tyre came off that a while ago, possibly a year ago, and it's only recently that the top tyre has joined it. And of course, when you're cutting, it's the bottom wheel that gets all the gunk that you're cutting first, and it's only a tiny amount gets transferred to the top wheel. So maybe that's the reason the tyre perished, and it was the first one, the bottom one, that went first. This is in a conservatory in a British summer. It gets very hot in here. Sometimes hits 40 degrees when on a hot day when the sun's full on the conservatory. So it's not the best environment for a bandsaw. But even so, I wouldn't have thought that would cause the rubber to perish. The rubber is not being subject to UV light, which is one of the reasons rubber will perish. As a former windsurfer, I've had wetsuits that just get destroyed in the sunlight. But who knows? I've got new tyres. I will put them on the wheel. Let's see how we get on. To take the blade off, I'd have to undo this bit. I could, but I can work like this, so I'll leave it on. Although, to set the blade up properly, I think I'm going to have to take the table off. We'll deal with that later when I'm adjusting the bearings. How easy this tyre is going to be to take off, I'm not sure. Ow. I had it then, I could have just tore it straight off. Right, we know it's off there. I think it's one occasion when brute force and ignorance is probably the way to go. we go. Hopefully you can see the cracking in the rubber, how perished it is. Also, look at the difference in size between the old one and the new one. Hopefully you can see the patch of rubber that remains on the wheel, glued there by the super glue. And I don't know whether you can see that one, it's just behind the rim. All this has got to come off. There's a massive lump actually. Gosh, that's quite big. Super glue remover. I could use pure acetone, I believe, but I think this is slightly oilier. I think it will stick better to the surfaces I'm dealing with. Softened it up. Yeah, it might just be a matter of scraping rather than coaxing it off. It's definitely softened it. I think that might rub off with my thumb. I think I need to keep applying. Don't think this was going to be the quick process I was hoping for. I might need some sort of hooked implement to get behind the rim here, but that's actually come off quite well. There were some surprisingly stubborn lumps of superglue, so acetone was what got it off in the end. I could use larger quantities of it, just really soak it, and that was what removed it. I know straight off that this is going to be tricky. There are no instructions on how to do this, but I've put a clamp over here. Clamp that in as best as I can. That should hold the band there. As you can see, the tyre is considerably shorter than the circumference of the wheel, so this is going to be quite tricky, I think. So let's see how we get on. I wonder if getting some traditional bike tyre levers might be the way to do this. This is going to be tricky. Yeah, particularly as the wheel is moving because of the height adjustment. I've put a clamp on top to stop the wheel from jumping up. Let's give that another go. I did it! It's not seated, but it's over the rim, which is most of the battle. And I didn't have to take the wheel off. It's on! Yay! What a relief. I don't think it's on I don't think it's seated particularly well. But maybe once I have the blade on, it'll just sort of wriggle it into place. I suspect there might be more tension on certain parts of the rim than on others. In fact, maybe if I put this through, if I can even get it through without spearing my finger. Maybe what I need to do is work this around the rim, and hopefully that'll even up the tension. Yeah. I think that worked remarkably well. Reluctantly, I'm going to take the table off because you can't actually adjust the bottom bearing with the table on, which I find ludicrous, but that's how it's designed. I'm going to judge that as tight enough. So the next step is to make sure we've got the wheels aligned. Actually, so far it looks quite good. I've got the blade sitting fairly central. There may not be any adjustment to do. You can see now why you can't adjust the bearings with the table on. Slacken that off, and then we can move the bottom bearing back away from the blade, and we'll do the top same with the top bearing, which is this adjustment here. And now slacken off these blade guides and just get it so that the blade is rotating without touching anything. There we go. Unfortunately, this whole guide assembly is twisted. I don't know whether I can correct that. It's sort of mounted. You can move the whole assembly in and out. I guess if you put a bigger blade on it, if that's even possible, you might want to move the whole assembly. But no, as I tighten it up, it twists. I don't think there's anything I can do about that. Slacken off the bottom guides as well. It's now running freely, but rather annoyingly you can see that it's doing this. The tyre isn't seated uniformly, so effectively the top wheel is an ellipse of sorts, so the tension's seating the wheel where it wants to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire this up, put my safety specs on, stand well back, fire it up and just let it run for a little bit, and hopefully that will seat the tyre a little bit more central. Seems to have improved the situation a little bit, but well, maybe not. I think for now I'll set it up, live with that, and then hopefully as I work with it, it'll settle down and be a bit more even. Yeah, okay. I think it might take a while to just settle down. But it's smooth. It isn't vibrating, surprisingly. To adjust the bushes, just press them onto the blade, just let the blade run and then tighten them. They're probably a bit wider than they need to be because there's going to be a little bit play on the wheel, so I will do another adjustment later when hopefully the wheel has settled down. But that should now be sufficient. Oh, actually I am a bit far away with that one. This one's a bit too far away. Let me just try moving the blade again. And tighten it up. No, as I'm tightening it, it's pushing the bush away. I think there's a notch in the bush. It's sort of taking up its previous position. Oh no. I don't know if you can see, but as I'm tightening it, the guide bush is moving outwards. It's not the best system. Let me try pressing it in. Yeah, I might have that too close to the blade now. Yeah, that might be okay. Press them onto the blade, rotate the blade. There won't be so much movement down here because the bottom wheel is a little bit more true, and that should be sufficient. And just tighten up the screws. Yeah, I'm happier with that one. The bottom bearing's infuriating because it's impossible for me to see it, let alone show it you on camera. Well, I say impossible, I can just about see it, but I can't see well enough to see the gap between the bearing and the blade. So I'm just going to press it against the blade, move the blade just as I did with the bushes, and then tighten it, and I think that's all I can do really. Really speaking, it should be just very slightly back from the blade, not actually touching, but I think that's okay because I think I've achieved that. I don't think the bearing is rotating with the blade, so that means it's not touching it, but I can see that it's fairly close. I think that's okay. Bottom bearing, I'm just going to back away very slightly. And tighten. You may have noticed I only did the one tyre, and I'm glad that's the case, because this isn't perfect. It's developed a little bit of a vibration, I think, because I haven't got the tension even right the way around the tyre. So I may have to go back in and readjust the tyre, sort of try and move it like I showed with the screwdriver. Or maybe with use it'll just settle down and it'll even itself up around the wheel, maybe. So we'll leave it there. Hopefully I've added to the community knowledge. And we'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, share the video, comment. Oh, and check out my Patreon page. It's newly set up. Come and join me. We'll see you soon. Bye.